Sharpening chisels and plane irons is a lot like working out. You know you should do it, but the biggest problem is just getting started. And like working out, the more you sharpen your tools, the better you get at it. In fact, you can even start to enjoy it and look forward to doing it. One of the big hurdles in getting started is all of the information and systems out there. We compared 4 methods and found that each has strengths and weaknesses. We took the best to create what we think is the ultimate sharpening system. Sandpaper is cheap, so it's an affordable method to get started with, but the paper wears out quickly, so you have to keep buying more. Water stones are affordable, but you have to soak them before you can use them, they dish out quickly, and it's easy to slop water all over your bench. Diamond stones cut the fastest, but they're expensive, and they don't do the best job for fine honing. Ceramic stones don't dish as fast as water stones. You don't have to pre-soak them, but they can be a bit pricey. Notice I left out oil stones. They're expensive, cut slowly, especially in the new harder blade alloys, and are really messy. Our recommendation is to get yourself a bench grinder with a 120 grit aluminum oxide wheel and 2 stones, a diamond stone in 325 and 1200 grit, and a ceramic stone in 6000 grit. The first step to sharpening is flattening the tools back. Luckily, you only have to do this once when the tool is new. You'll find that chisels that look flat when they come from the factory usually aren't. And the nice thing about our system is that it uses diamond stones in the coarse grits. They stay flat and they cut really fast, so this chore isn't so bad. When flattening chisels, I tend to go front to back instead of a sliding motion like this. It's really easy, especially on narrower chisels, to start rocking it back and forth, and instead of a flat back, you create a convex back. And hopefully you can see this too. This chisel suffers the same problems. It's flat here, and then I have a hollow all the way along. My ultimate goal is to get it flat just at the edge. So if it was flat here, I'd be happy. On this one, you can see the tip I have nice and flat, and then I have kind of a squiggly line running all the way to the heel. That's okay. As I keep sharpening this, eventually it'll flatten out. Now you could use a stone to shape the initial bevel, but we found that no stone cuts as fast as a grinder. This will produce what's called a hollow grind, in that the wheel will produce a slightly concave shape to the bevel. Now that I've quickly shaped the bevel at the grinder, I can concentrate on honing with stones. A good quality honing guide holds your tools at repeatable angles, sharpening after sharpening. This one is from Lee Valley. It has a built-in jig to set your blade angles. It also centers your blade and holds it square to the tool. And as a clamp as a way to hold your blade still. To get started, I'll start with the 325 grit diamond stone, a few spritzes of water, and this cuts really fast. I can already feel a burr, so I can move on to the next grit. Now all I'm doing here is wiping off the wheel and wiping the edge of the tool to remove any grit from that coarser side of the stone before I move to the 1200 grit side. On this side, I'll take about a dozen strokes, wipe it off, just evaluate the edge. And now I'm ready to move on to the 6,000 grit ceramic stone. You can see on this I'm creating a micro bevel in that I ground the shape of the bevel to 25 degrees, and now I'm honing at 30. This jig is nice in that it has a little adjustment, so I can raise the wheel up by half a degree on my final stone. And what that does is it lets me sharpen just the edge. Now I'm done. Once you get used to this system and your stones, you'll find that the diamond stones cut so fast that sometimes using the 325 grit is overkill. If I'm coming right off my grinder, or if I'm at one of my first sharpenings, usually I can just start with the 1200 grit. So in effect, unless I have a chipped edge or a really blunted edge, or the micro bevel is starting to get really wide, I can just use 2 grits instead of 1 grit, or 2 grits instead of 3 grits. It might take just a few more passes on the 1200 grit side, but the trade-off is you don't have to use the 325 grit at all. With sharp tools, you'll find you have better control and better results.